My name is Alex, and I've always been a fan of Halloween. There's something about the crisp autumn air, the rustling leaves, and the anticipation of spooky tales that makes it my favorite time of the year. But the Halloween of 2022 would change my perspective on the holiday forever. It all started when my friends and I decided to spend Halloween night at a place known as Hollow House, an old mansion located on the outskirts of town. The legend surrounding Hollow House was the stuff of local folklore, a tale of a cursed family, tragic deaths, and restless spirits. Some said the place was haunted, while others dismissed it as mere superstition. We, being a group of thrill seekers, were determined to find out for ourselves. On the afternoon of Halloween, we gathered at my friend Sarah's house. Our group included Sarah, Jake, Emma, and me. Armed with flashlights, snacks, and a few brave faces, we set out for Hollow House just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the trees. The mansion loomed before us, its once grand facade now weathered and worn. Ivy crawled up the walls, and broken windows stared out like empty eye sockets. As we approached, the air grew colder, and a palpable sense of unease settled upon us. We cautiously entered the mansion, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The interior was a decrepit mess, rotting furniture, peeling wallpaper, and a pervasive musty odor that clung to the air. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie, and I couldn't help but shiver. Our plan was simple: explore the mansion, share ghost stories, and see if we could capture any paranormal activity on our cameras. We split into pairs, with Jake and Emma going one way, and Sarah and I venturing deeper into the mansion. As Sarah and I walked through the dimly lit corridors, the creaking floorboards and distant sounds of the wind outside set the perfect eerie backdrop for our Halloween adventure. We made our way to what appeared to be the mansion's grand ballroom. The room was immense, with a towering ceiling and a long-abandoned chandelier hanging ominously above. It was then that we heard it, faint, almost imperceptible at first, but growing steadily louder. The soft strains of a melancholic piano melody echoed through the mansion. We exchanged bewildered glances and followed the haunting music. The source of the sound was a grand piano, its keys moving as if played by invisible hands. Sarah and I stood there, frozen in fear, as the ethereal music filled the room. It was beautiful and haunting, a melody that seemed to tell a tale of love and loss. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the music stopped. The mansion fell silent once more, except for the pounding of our hearts. We couldn't explain it. There was no one else in the room with us, and the piano appeared untouched. We regrouped with Jake and Emma, who had experienced their own unsettling encounters. Emma claimed to have seen a shadowy figure in one of the mirrors, and Jake said he heard whispering voices coming from the walls. As we shared our experiences, a sense of dread settled over us. This wasn't the fun and games we had anticipated. It felt as though the very walls of Hollow House were alive with malevolent energy. We decided to continue exploring, hoping to capture more evidence of the paranormal. Our journey led us to a dusty library, its shelves lined with books that had long since decayed into moldering tomes. Among the ruined literature, I found an old diary. Its pages were yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant but faded. The diary belonged to a woman named Eliza Hollow, a member of the family who had once lived here. She chronicled the tragic events that had befallen them, a series of untimely deaths, mysterious illnesses, and a growing sense of dread that had consumed them. The final entry spoke of a dark ritual they had attempted in a desperate bid to rid themselves of the curse that plagued their family. It was a chilling revelation. We had stumbled upon a diary that seemed to confirm the legend surrounding Hollow House. But it was what happened next that would forever haunt my nightmares. As I finished reading the diary entry aloud, the room grew cold, and a spectral figure materialized before us. It was a woman, her tattered dress and ashen visage telling the story of a tragic and tormented soul. She pointed an accusing finger at us and let out a blood-curdling scream that reverberated through the library. We fled in terror, leaving the diary behind, and reunited with Jake and Emma. We decided to make our way to the mansion's basement, hoping to find some answers or a way out. But what we found was a chamber of horrors. In the dim light of our flashlights, we discovered a room filled with eerie artifacts, jars containing strange, preserved specimens, arcane symbols etched onto the walls, and a table covered in what appeared to be ritualistic tools. It was a chamber of unspeakable horrors, and the air grew thick with malevolent energy. As we cautiously approached the table, a cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing our flashlights. In the darkness, we heard whispers, sinister, taunting voices that seemed to come from all directions. We fumbled for our flashlights, but they remained stubbornly dim. Then, from the shadows emerged figures, not just one, but a multitude of them. Ghostly apparitions of the cursed family, their eyes hollow and filled with anguish. They circled us, their voices a cacophony of torment, accusing us of trespassing on their cursed domain. Panicked and disoriented, we stumbled out of the basement and back into the main hallway. But the mansion itself seemed to have turned against us. The walls shifted and groaned, closing in around us, trapping us in a labyrinth of twisting corridors. We ran, our screams echoing through the cursed mansion. Time lost meaning as we navigated the ever-changing maze, each corridor leading us deeper into the heart of our nightmares. It felt as though we were ensnared in the very curse that had plagued the Hollow family for generations. Eventually, we found ourselves back in the grand ballroom, the same room where we had heard the haunting piano melody. But now the chandelier above us began to sway ominously, casting flickering shadows that danced along the walls. A deafening cacophony of voices filled the room, drowning out our cries. The apparitions of the Hollow family closed in on us, their faces contorted in anguish and rage. It was then that I realized we were reliving the final moments of the cursed family's ill-fated ritual. In a desperate bid to escape, we retraced our steps to the basement, where the malevolent forces seemed to originate. The Chamber of Horrors awaited us, but this time, we had no choice but to confront it head-on. As we entered the chamber, the ritualistic tools on the table began to levitate, and the symbols on the walls glowed with an eerie, pulsating light. The voices grew louder, more tormenting, as if the spirits were trying to drag us into their eternal suffering. With trembling hands, I reached for the diary that had triggered this nightmare. I held it aloft and began to read from its pages, hoping that by acknowledging the family's tragic history, we could somehow appease the restless spirits. The room shook, and the apparitions wailed in agony. But as I continued to read, their forms began to dissipate, their tormented cries fading into the ether. The malevolent energy that had trapped us began to dissipate, and the walls of Hollow House ceased their shifting. Exhausted and shaken, we stumbled out of the mansion and into the cold Halloween night. The cursed family had been appeased, but the scars of that night would forever haunt us. Halloween, once a beloved holiday, had become a chilling reminder of the horrors we had witnessed. We never spoke of our ordeal to anyone, for who would believe such a tale? But we knew that the legends surrounding Hollow House were far from superstition. They were a terrifying reality. And as Halloween approaches once more, I can't help but wonder what other horrors may lie in wait, lurking in the shadows of this haunted holiday.